Hi, this is Miss Camp. In this video, when you hear me say the word sentence, I am going to be talking about an independent clause. English teachers like to say that a sentence is made up of two parts, the subject and the predicate. Subject and predicate. Every sentence is made up of these two parts, the subject and the predicate. But not every sentence has just two words. In fact, most sentences have many more than two words. So if a sentence has lots of words, how can we say that it's made up of just two parts, the subject and the predicate? Well, this is where we use the word complete. We can still divide a sentence into two parts. The first part will be the complete subject, and the second part will be the complete predicate. I use red for my subject, and I use green for my predicate. So we can take any independent clause and split it into two parts, the complete subject and the complete predicate. But we also have something called the simple subject and the simple predicate. And we are going to be talking about that in this video. When we are looking for the simple subject, we are going to be talking about, all my cards, finding the noun or the pronoun in the complete subject. And we're going to be looking for the verb in the predicate. Every predicate has to have a verb in it. It's usually the first word of the predicate. So when you're looking at a sentence, if you find the verb, that might help you know where to split the sentence into the two parts of the subject and the predicate. The complete subject will come before that verb, and the verb will begin the complete predicate most of the time. We will see other words in the sentence as well that we will talk about today. We will see adjectives, and we will see prepositional phrases. We will also talk about the pronoun, and we will talk about how a noun, which is a person, place, thing, or idea, can be in a sentence either the subject of the sentence or an object of the sentence. The subject, I use red, and the object, I use orange. So every noun, you can see with my noun that I have both red and orange on here, because every noun can either be who or what the sentence is about. This is the one who's doing the action or that is being something. It will come usually before the verb. Or the noun can be an object. This usually comes after the verb. It is the noun that the action is being done to. So if I say, the girl rides a bike, the subject is the girl, she is the one riding the bike, and the object would be the bike. But in that sentence, the girl rides a bike, there are two nouns. The girl is a noun, that's a person, and the bike is a noun, that's a thing. But one of them is doing the riding. That's the girl. The girl is riding. What is she riding? The bike. So the girl is the subject. It comes before the word rides, and the bike is the object. It comes after the word rides. We will see that a pronoun, which can take the place of a noun, can either be the subject of the sentence, and that is in this red circle, and we would use words like I, you, he, she, it, we, or they. That would be if the pronoun is the subject of the sentence coming before the verb, or the pronoun can be an object. So I'm reading upside down. Me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. So if I say, take my sentence, the girl rides a bike, I could say, she rides it. All right, what else are we going to talk about? Prepositional phrases. This is when we have a group of words that begins with a preposition, it ends with a noun, and it answers the question where, or when, or which one. And when I use the word adjective, I'm talking about a word or a phrase that gives more information about a noun and answers one of these questions. What kind? How, what does that say? How many? Or which one? And we are also going to talk today about words that have ing at the end. These can be a little bit confusing because do you see all my colors? They can be a noun as the subject of the sentence, or orange, the object, a noun that's the object of the sentence, or a yellow, I use for adjective, or green, which is a verb. And we will also see the word gerund. More about that later. So for right now, I'm going to share my iPad screen with you. I just said that every sentence has two parts, the subject and the predicate. Now, if our sentence is something very simple, like the dog is barking, we can see that the dog is the subject and is barking is the predicate. So red for the subject, green for the predicate. The subject tells us who or what the sentence is about, who or what is doing something or being something, and it usually comes first. So this sentence is about the dog. What is the dog doing? The dog is barking. So is barking is telling us what it is doing or being. In the predicate, we need to have a verb. The verb is called the simple predicate. So here's where I say simple predicate. If you look at the predicate of the sentence and just find the verb is called the simple predicate. In this sentence, is barking is the simple predicate and the complete predicate. But let's look at a different sentence. This one says, the neighbor's dog with brown spots is barking at the birds in the backyard. So this sentence has many more words in it. How do we know what's the subject and what's the predicate? Well, I've made the subject, the complete subject, red, and the complete predicate, green. So the complete subject is the neighbor's dog with brown spots. So this would be, that's the complete subject. That tells us who or what the sentence is about. Then let's look at the complete predicate. And I think that's going to be this one. Okay, the complete predicate is barking at the birds in the backyard. That part tells us what the dog is doing. Now, how I found that predicate is I looked for the verb. And the verb, the little verb, it's always hard to find. People forget that this is a verb, but whoops, hang on. There it is. The word is a verb. It's a very little word, but it is a verb. It can be a verb by itself, or if we have a word after it that ends in ing, right here, an ing word, then that can also be part of the verb. Okay. So the verb will begin the predicate. So that's my clue. I look for that first. And then all the words that come after it are giving me more information. They're telling me what he's barking at, where he's barking, and all of that can go into the complete predicate. And then the words that come before is barking are telling me what or who is barking. And that right here, the neighbor's dog with brown spots, that is the complete subject. However, we need to find the simple subject and the simple predicate. We need to look for this. The reason for that is because of something called Subject-Verb Agreement. Subject-Verb Agreement is when we figure out whether or not we need to put an S at the end of the verb. There's a difference between saying the girl, one girl, rides with an S, her bike, or the girls, many girls, ride with no S, their bikes. So it's one girl riding her bike or many girls riding their bikes. And the difference would be whether or not we put an S at the end of the verb ride. Well, the only way we can make that decision is if we can find the verb and then find the one noun that is doing that verb. And in our complete subject, we can see several nouns. Let's take a look at the nouns we can see. There is a dog. There are spots. So there's two. Neighbor in this sentence is not a noun because of this apostrophe S. That apostrophe S is just telling us that this dog belongs to the neighbor. So we have dog and we have spots, but who is barking? The spots are not barking. The dog is barking. So our simple subject is going to be the dog. So I'm going to show you this here, how I mark this. First, I'm going to find the verb, is barking. And I want to find out who or what is barking. Well, that's the dog. That one word right there is the noun in the sentence that is doing the verb, that is doing the barking. So dog in this sentence is the simple subject, and is barking is the simple predicate. We can see other things in the sentence. For example, the neighbors are telling us which dog we're talking about. They're acting as an adjective. With brown spots is a prepositional phrase. It's a prepositional phrase that's acting like an adjective because it's giving us more information about the dog. And together, the neighbor's dog with brown spots is the complete subject. But dog, right here, we just look at dog, that is the simple subject. And that's the important one for us to find in order for us to figure out what to do with the verb. So let's look at the complete predicate for a minute. Is barking at the birds in the backyard? Well, at is a preposition. That means I need to look for a noun that comes after it. So here's at is a preposition, a noun, birds is a noun. And so this is the prepositional phrase together. When you find a noun in a prepositional phrase, it's not going to be the subject. So in that prepositional phrase, birds might be a noun, but it's not a subject. So it is actually an object. And then we see another preposition. So we look for a noun. Backyard is a place. So that's a noun. So those words together are a prepositional phrase. And that is answering the question, where is the dog barking? So is barking at the birds in the backyard is the complete predicate. But the simple predicate is just going to be the verb, is barking. So we can get rid of those. So now we have the dog is barking. That is the simple subject, dog, and simple predicate is the verb. Now that we know the noun and the verb that go together, once we have that, and the noun could be replaced by a pronoun, by a subject pronoun. But when we have that matched up with the verb, we can figure out, do we need an S at the end of the verb or not? I want to show you these 3 sentences. We have the first one, climbing trees with my friends is my favorite thing to do. In a minute, we are going to figure out how to find the complete subject and the complete predicate, and then the simple subject and the simple predicate. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about these words that have ing at the end, because they can be tricky. So to do that, we're going to look at sentence 2 and 3. I am climbing and I like climbing. In sentence number 2, climbing is part of the verb. And in sentence number 3, it's not. It's being a noun, it's being an object. That seems tricky. Let's figure out how we can make that less tricky and more simple. When you're looking at, so let me cover up this part right here for a minute. Okay. When you're looking at a sentence, if you find a word in it that has ing at the end of it, and right before is part of the verb to be. The verb to be is either, well, if it's present, it's going to be am, is, or are. It could also be, if it's past tense, it could be was, or it could be were. And if it's in the future, it could be will be. So if you see a word that ends in ing, and right before it is one of these words, am, is, are, was, were, or will be, then that word that ends in ing is part of the verb. It's a special verb tense called the progressive tense. Sometimes it's called the continuous tense. And it would be present if am, is, or are comes before it. It would be past progressive if was or were comes before it. And it would be future progressive if will be comes before it. So if you see one of these words here before the verb that ends with ing, then it is part of the verb. All of these words in that green circle, we call that the verb to be. A lot of people forget that this is a verb because we don't think of it as having action. But this is probably the most common verb in all of English. And it can be a verb by itself, or it can be right before an action verb that ends with ing. So in this sentence, the subject is I, which is a pronoun, and the predicate is am climbing. We only have I am climbing in this sentence. So I is the complete subject and the simple subject. And am climbing is the complete predicate and the simple predicate. Remember, the simple predicate is just the verb in the sentence. Let's look at this one. In this example, I like climbing. The subject of the sentence is I, which is a pronoun, it's a person. That would be me, the person talking. And then like is the verb. This is what I'm doing. So I, subject, like. I is the complete subject and the simple subject because it's the only word in the subject. Like is that simple predicate, just the verb. Like climbing is the complete predicate. When we look at this sentence, I am not climbing in this sentence. I am telling you what I like. This is different from saying I am climbing. In the sentence I am climbing right now. Climbing is what I am doing. It's part of the verb. But in this sentence, I like climbing. I am not climbing right now. I am telling you what I like. So this sentence is about what I like. And then we ask the question, what do you like? I like what? And the answer to that question is climbing, the act of climbing, the idea of climbing. When you can answer a question, when you can answer the question, what? We're going to answer it with a noun. That noun could be a person, place, thing, or idea. And in this case, when we answer the question, when we have the subject, verb, and then we say what, I like what, we're answering it with an object, the noun acting as an object. So you can see here that in our sentence, we have subject and then verb and then object. Both the subject and the object are a noun or a pronoun. The subject is the one doing it, or the one it is about, and the object is the answer to the question, what? Like, I like what? What is it that I like? Well, we have this trick you can see here in English. We can take our verb and then we can add ing to it, and then it's going to become a noun. And that noun can be used as the subject or as the object in the sentence. When we have an ing at the end of it and we are thinking of it as a noun, we call that word a gerund. Gerund. So gerund is a word that ends with ing, and we are using it as a noun. And it can be the subject or object in the sentence. It is when we are talking about the act of doing it, the idea of doing it. If I say, I like swimming, I'm thinking of the idea of swimming, the action of swimming. Swimming is something that I like to do, the sport of swimming. I'm not saying that I'm swimming right now. If I say swimming is my favorite sport, well, the verb in that sentence is. There has to be a subject. What is my favorite sport? The answer to the question, what, is going to be a noun. So in the sentence, swimming is my favorite sport. What is my favorite sport? It's swimming. Yes, it ends with an ing, but in that sentence, I'm not swimming. I'm just telling you that the act of swimming, the idea of swimming, the action of swimming, the sport of swimming is my favorite sport. Okay. Now, ing can also be an adjective. I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but ing words are interesting because if you see an ing word, it can be a verb. If we have am, is, are, was, were, will be in front of it. It can be a noun that is a subject or an object of the sentence, but it can also be an adjective, which we put in front of a noun to help us know what kind of noun. So in this sentence, the climbing roses are pretty. We can see here's our verb are, and that's the simple predicate. Are pretty is the complete predicate. So what, we want to know what is pretty, and that would be the climbing roses. So the complete subject is the climbing roses. The simple subject, roses. That's these flowers that you can see in the picture. But we want to know what kind of roses. And here, climbing roses. Climbing in this sentence are telling us that we're talking about these kind of roses that can climb up the side of a house. And so they have a name called the climbing roses. And climbing, you can see it ends in ing, but that word climbing is telling us what kind of roses are pretty. Okay, so it can be an adjective. It can be a noun. We call this the gerund. When you hear the word gerund, you're talking about when we took a verb, an action word, we added ing to it, and then we're using it as a noun, either as the subject of the sentence or as an object in the sentence. And then we're not saying the person is doing it, we're just talking about the idea of it or the act of it. All right, I said we're going to take a look at the sentence, climbing trees with my friends. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's the sentence, climbing trees with my friends is my favorite thing to do. How can we find the complete subject and the complete predicate? Well, we can start by finding the verb is, and then that will help us find the predicate. The complete predicate is my favorite thing to do. So what is my favorite thing to do? That will be the complete subject, climbing trees with my friends. So there are the two parts to our sentence. The complete subject is climbing trees with my friends. The complete predicate is my favorite thing to do. But we need to find that simple subject and the simple predicate to make sure that we know whether or not this should be is or are. We will use is if it's just one thing, and we will use are if it's more than one thing. So we really need to know when we look here at this complete subject, which one of these words, which one of these nouns is the important word for matching with the verb? Which one is the simple subject? So when we look inside this complete subject and we look for the nouns, well, we know that friends is a noun because that's a person. So friends are nouns. Trees are nouns. Those are things. The act of climbing is a gerund. So that is also a noun. So we can see three nouns in that sentence. We need to ask ourselves, what is my favorite thing to do? Friends, are friends my favorite thing to do? Because we do see that friends ends with an S. That's more than one friend. So then we would use are. Would it make sense to say friends are my favorite thing to do? No, that's not what this sentence is about. So it cannot be friends. Trees, that ends with an S. So that would go with are. Would it make sense to say trees are my favorite thing to do? No, that does not make sense either, because this sentence is not about trees. This sentence is about climbing trees. All of these words are important. Climbing trees, climbing, I'm not talking about climbing a mountain. I'm not talking about climbing trees by myself. So all of these words are important, but we need to find the one word, the one noun or pronoun that we can match up with our verb. So in this sentence, let's break apart our sentence a little bit more to help us, okay? First of all, we can see that with is a preposition. And when we find a preposition, we want to keep looking for a noun. Here it is. So those words are going to go together as a prepositional phrase. When you have a prepositional phrase, the last word is going to be a noun. So with is a preposition. All of those words together in that pink box are called a prepositional phrase. The last word in that phrase is a noun, and we call that the object of the preposition. So let's get rid of this red arrow. So in the prepositional phrase, you will have the preposition first. The noun at the end is never going to be the subject of the sentence. A noun in a sentence either needs to be a subject or an object. Since this can't be a subject, we call it an object. It's an object of this word, the preposition. So with my friends goes together as a group of words that does not have a subject and a verb in them. That's what we mean when we say it's a prepositional phrase. Phrase is a group of words that does not have a subject and a verb in it. This noun cannot be the subject of the sentence, so it's an object. So we do see that noun, friends, but that's not the subject, the simple subject of our sentence. It is part of the complete subject, but it's not the one we're looking for the simple subject. When we look here at trees, trees is important because it's telling us what we're climbing. We're climbing what? We're climbing trees. This is not our simple subject either. Climbing is what we're talking about in this sentence. So this word climbing, which is a gerund, it's the act of climbing, is the subject. When we use a gerund as the subject, it will go with a singular verb. We act as though it is just one. So we would use the verb is, not are. So in this sentence, we have our complete subject is climbing trees with my friends. Our complete predicate is my favorite thing to do. Those are the two parts of the sentence, subject, predicate. But we need to find that simple subject and simple predicate so that we can make sure we know if we need an S at the end of the verb or not. So now we can see our simple subject and our simple predicate. Climbing is the gerund form of the word climb. We add ing and we're turning it into a noun. The act of climbing, the idea of climbing. And so it will go with is. So is our simple predicate. Climbing is our simple subject. Okay, so that is what we are looking at today. The subject and predicate of a sentence. Every independent clause can be split into these two parts, subject and predicate. The two parts, all of the words in the subject are called the complete subject. All of the words in the predicate are called the complete predicate. But it's important for us to find the simple subject so that we know if it's one or more than one. And that helps us find the simple predicate and decide if we need to put an S at the end of it or not when we're talking about the present tense or something happening right now.